Hi, I'm Kinshuk community manager at OSSU and organizer at OSSU in Mozilla. I have with me Arun, who is a standards evangelist at Mozilla, and Seth, who is the director of localization. With me is also Mohak, who is the main organizer of Mozilla Candidate. So what we're going to have right now is a small discussion with Arun and Seth about how the web is changing and what is the future of the web and what should we expect from internet, HTML5 and all these things. So first of all, to begin with, Arun, what do you see for the web in the future, like the open web concept, the semantic web, all these things, localization, how these things are going to change?
Firstly, it's a great honor to be here. It's a great honor to participate in Moscow Delhi. So your question is how I personally see where the web is going, what's going to come down in the future, and in general, a question like that. I think, from my perspective where I sit, I'm very excited about standards that are emerging, particularly about the video elements within HTML5. I'm very excited about the possibility of open video codecs on the web. I'm excited about the possibility of things like video being a first-rate citizen of the web and not accessible merely via a plugin. I'm excited about that walled garden coming apart, or the wall coming down. I'm also excited about the general API capabilities that are being introduced. For example, the concept of worker threads, being able to introduce some notion of threading into JavaScript, perhaps a performance enhancement for different web applications. I'm generally excited by the possibilities that web applications now have, the new things that have been introduced into the platform, and the sort of general unification of formats and how things operate, whether it's FTP and video and HTML5. That's really where I see things going.
What would you say?
Well, from my position, I think I'm best to speak about localization and our efforts there. And first, I guess to mimic what Arun said, I'm really thankful for the effort you guys put in to schedule such a great event today and reaching out to many of the Mozilla community here in India. Makes it clear that the work we're doing in localization is having an impact, because every time we visit and speak to people, we're meeting people from different regions of this country that speak many different languages. And India itself is a great example of, I think, where localization on the web and localization on Firefox can go. So in the longer term, I think it would be great to have a world where 100% of the world's internet population is able to participate on the web in their own language. And I know we'll do as much as we can to get there and get there as quickly as possible.
Okay. Yeah, it's a bit of the question. When is Firefox adopting Foxcade?
That's a question about when Firefox is adopting Foxcade. I think you're probably referring to the cute logo, the Foxcade logo, which was produced by Mozilla Japan. I'm not very knowledgeable about this, but I think that the Foxcade logo will become part of Mozilla proper. I'm not sure that there will be a general strategy to adopt it or whatever. But it's definitely a very successful little logo.
Yeah.
Okay, standards is your domain. So Google comes up with a new browser, and now everyone's talking about how Google can compete, how they can get new browser walls. So we have heard a lot about that. What is your take on how Google and Firefox can work together to shape up the web?
So actually, the introduction of a new browser into the browser market and Google Chrome is an interesting and promising development, because the fact that a big company like Google is interested in the browser space shows that the browser space is actually very hot. It shows that there's room for innovation and room for competition. I see that as a positive. And also I see that as a statement made in favor of the web as a platform. That is, the notion that the most interesting apps that you're building are made on the open web. Google can be a potentially very promising partner in the standard space. Google has shown a lot of interest in the standard space, and Google can help work towards better web standards and also the adoption of web standards. So Google's presence is generally a good thing, and competition is generally a good thing. So I think that there are definitely areas where we can collaborate in. Notably, I think that the HTML5 specification is edited by Google employees, certainly showing some investment in the general direction of HTML5. And new APIs that are introduced via, say, technologies like Google Gears are also candidates for standardization. So I definitely see strong areas where Google can contribute to the standards effort, and I definitely think that the two organizations working together is generally good for the web.
Some observations there.
I really would mimic what Arun said and endorse what he said. I think it's certainly good. From a localization standpoint, I'd like to see how Google decides to promote their browser to new locales. I know when they launched in about 42 languages, and that was such a great effort by them to see them get that. I want to see how they go and how they integrate translation into the web, and potentially Firefox and Google could then collaborate on those things so that not only is the UI and the Chrome of the browser translated, but there's more opportunities for translation of content on the web. I think Google is probably a terrific candidate to really push that.
We talked about the program. In your personal view, in which way is the currency lacking in promoting Firefox? Shall I quote?
Sure.
My father is a banker, and I tell you honestly, in banks, by today they run on DBM system, and they don't actually know about Mozilla Firefox.
Right.
How do you plan, and how does this community plan to bridge the gap?
That's a good question, and that question goes straight to the heart of what an evangelism effort about Firefox might be like, particularly in India. In today's Moscamp Delhi, we discussed some site incompatibilities with, say, top Indian sites and Firefox. Some of these site incompatibilities exist largely because of ignorance, perhaps, about Firefox. Sometimes they may exist because the site is dependent on a technology that is largely proprietary, provided by Microsoft, manifested in Internet Explorer. And sometimes there may be misunderstandings about what a secure browser is, and there may be definitions of security that may exclude Firefox, which is not accurate. So we've come across all these scenarios, and Mahat particularly mentioned banks. I think that community effort in this area should involve a lot of volunteer action. For example, Firefox enthusiasts such as the kind we met today at Moscamp Delhi. We should keep track of sites that are not allowing Firefox users to use the site using Bugzilla and filing site incompatibility bugs with special keywords, perhaps the keywords we should, and I think the community can sort of work together around such a common framework to identify the site and to evangelize the site, to evangelize the webmaster, to send emails and that sort of thing, to send emails to people behind the site. In general, I think that this is something that can't be done at scale by the organization alone, that is, by paid employees such as Seth and I think it's something that we would like to have the community help with, and I think that's where we can do it at scale. So this is an area that's still to be discussed and to be developed, and I think there's a lot of good work that needs to be happening here so that sites can get unlocked.
The community does a pretty terrific job at localization. It's 100% volunteer driven, and we're now localizing in roughly 65 languages. But I think I see other areas where the community can help. The marketing community is a very young, nascent community that can expand. And when the marketing community works together to promote things like Firefox, some of the issues you brought up I think would be addressed. So what are the creative ways that individuals who are developing, translating, testing the browser can now help spread the browser? So I'd love to see the community take that. Hopefully we'll have gone through the release of Firefox 3.1, which is the next version of the browser, and I'm sure Arun can speak to some of the more technical and web standards elements that will be featured in that. In that browser, from the release of Firefox 3.1, we added roughly 20 new languages, which is a pretty incredible increase based all on community And I think after the release of Firefox 3.1, we'll immediately start to think about what will go into 3.2, what's the next version of Firefox going to be, what are the next Mozilla technologies. That happens all the time, but I think in the next 3 months we'll start to see very cool from outside of the United States. So that right there tells us that our growth and our continued presence on the web and the impact that we can have is happening because of the global community, not because of those that are looking in North America.
And what are you looking for?
So I'm looking forward to us releasing Firefox 3.1. It'd be hard for me to pinpoint an exact date, but it's definitely going to be one of the priorities in the next 3 months. It's certainly a priority for us right now. And I think that I'm really looking forward to the release of some features, some of which I discussed at Camp Delhi, including the support for the video elements and some of the early video APIs. I'm really looking forward to seeing what developers do with that. I'm looking forward to see whether that will foster some of the ideas behind an open video format, whether folks will work on releasing their video content in open format, like Orbis or Diora. They're basically their audio or video content. I think that's going to be a very exciting development. I think the next 3 months we'll see some of that development start and the beginning of the realization of that.
And how is concept contributing to this?
Your question is about the Mozilla Concept Lab series. Today we heard a talk also given by Pascal via Skype here about the Mozilla Lab Concept series. Pascal invited a lot of participation. I think the concept series lowers the barrier towards people participating in browsers and participating in introduction of browser features. For example, Pascal explicitly said you don't necessarily have to be a developer. You can be somebody that makes an interesting video or does something interesting. With the release of tools such as video and stuff like that, with that kind of thing out there, I think creativity is what the key is. And I think the concept series is our means of harnessing some of that creativity in an open environment.
Well, I have this feedback for you that the community perceives Mozilla as a very strong proponent of open source, and a lot of people, when they are asked which is the first open source software you use, they say Firefox. So a lot of stuff has been done in the open source domain by Mozilla. What is the commitment of Mozilla to open source now, and what are its future roadmaps?
I think Mozilla's commitment to open source is sort of clearly laid out on the table. We're very, very committed to open source. We're very committed to openness in general. With Firefox, what you see is largely what you get. Everything about Firefox is built in the open and built as part of our open source endeavor. Our commitment to open source is not going to waver. It's certainly something that we hold true. And I think openness in general, whether it's our source code or whether the way we operate, particularly in the standards arena, is generally a commitment that we hold very dearly, particularly myself. I'm keen on having standards process also open. A lot of listserv transactions and discussions about standards and emerging standards, including some contentious issues, are in the open. So those are the kinds of things that I think we can look forward to more of.
The only thing I would add to that is that I think that the proof of our commitment to open source is simply the way that our organization operates. There's absolutely no way, from my perspective, that we could ship the browser in 65 languages across 3 platforms simultaneously unless we were completely 100% dedicated to open source software development. There's 100% volunteer. There's no way we can do that. We don't pay for one localization. And yet we're reaching, nearly 98% of the world's internet population with those translations, and it's all 100% volunteer driven. So I think that itself is just a pure statement of our commitment to open source, because we realize that as a philosophy, it's the only way that we can operate and succeed.
I must say that the concept series, this again is a very strong statement by the company in the belief of open source, and they are contributing back to the community. So it's both downstream and upstream altogether.
Yeah.
That brings me to another topic, which is a bit contentious topic. A lot of people, a big factor of the community perceives the licensing of a software like Mozilla a bit restrictive. So there are issues with using the Mozilla logo, there are issues with having Firefox code and everything, having your own hack on it. What is your perception on these issues?
I would respectfully disagree with anybody that thinks the licensing is restrictive. But as they say, the devil is typically in the details. I'd like to understand why somebody would think the license is restrictive, and I'd like to look at specifics. As a general rule, the license allows you to use the software and for your good, for your profit, for whatever you wish. The requirement is merely that improvements would be returned back to the tree. I think your specific point was with respect to the use of the logo. I think that the Firefox logo actually is part of the branded product that is called Firefox. And so I can see why using the logo on products that don't necessarily have that same code base may be misleading to people. And so that may be perceived as restrictive, but again, I disagree that it's fundamentally restrictive. I think that the license about the code and where it's important is pretty open and quite permissive.
And to look back toward the original code owner, and my understanding is that we don't have that restriction. Our code is there to be used, and we ask for people to pass contributions back upstream. And just to reinforce what Arun said, I think the one thing that may distinguish our offering is what we brand as Firefox. And if someone is going to fork code and remove themselves from maybe our update process, and they don't get the same security updates that we are offering to our end users, then we wouldn't feel comfortable calling that product Firefox, because to us Firefox means the absolute best, most secure opportunity that someone could have on the web. And if it's not, it will be there when we learn how to make it even better. And if someone chooses to change that direction using the code base, we can't really call that Firefox, because our users would then be at a risk that we're not comfortable having them as the app.
If there are restrictions that are prohibited, they'll be undertaken with some good reasoning and some good thinking. However, I think that what you just raised are really good and valid points for feedback, and I'd be very happy to take that back. Very happy to talk to Mozilla about that, and sort of discuss what you ran into. I think again, as Seth said and as I said a little bit earlier, the use of Firefox implies a certain experience on the web, which is again why when we're releasing nightly builds or other things, we call that something else. We call it minefield. It's not Firefox yet. It's not the most stable. It's not the best yet till we undergo the release cycle process and other things. So there's a certain implicit trust associated with the brand. And what you may have bumped up into are sort of issues about using the brand across other promotional activities.
Web browser being used by 200 million people across the world, and for the most part is voluntarily driven and created. It's the first time that we're experiencing how to do these things as well. So if there are there bumps in the way, they're unintentional, and naturally we want to work with the people who are creating the browser and spreading it. So.
That's right. And I should say also, this was equally a learning experience for us.
Any thoughts on talking to the chief about having like CC licensing? I mean, all right results can be shared to some right results, and people can actually use it. Back up to the Mozilla site. Get it to the original Mozilla site. There's no such issue. So why is it happening, or how do you see it happening? If you're talking to large people.
Yeah, I mean, I see a constructive discussion. Most discussions in Mozilla are very constructive. There's no, I mean, it's definitely food for thought. Definitely something we can take back and discuss. And it's, again, I couldn't speak to specifics about whether the discussion would go in favor of Creative Commons or anything else. Largely because I'm not part of the brand group or the people that sort of really think about these things. But this is definitely a discussion I'm happy to have.
So, what do you see about these things? These things?
Yeah, I mean, I think these are all really exciting developments. I think the term cloud computing may be used in many different contexts. It may mean different things to different people. To me, it certainly means a connected series of servers that are wielding a lot of tasks on behalf of users. Sometimes we put our trust into those services. There are big web companies that compete for your attention and compete to offer you services. I think trust and security issues are paramount. Users shouldn't be exploited. Other servers or services shouldn't be able to use user data. So I think user data and concern about user data is an area that Mozilla is very, very interested in, is very, very concerned about. We think that there's a lot of work to be done here, a lot of creative and critical thought that needs to happen here. As exciting as these developments are, including as exciting as the potential of new things like video are, your question also had a component about cloud computing. I think those are also exciting developments, but again, I would say that security and privacy of the user are absolutely paramount. So as these developments happen, those things should be kept in strong focus.
That has to materialize.
I'll say it again.
Cloud computing is something that still has to reach its maturity.
Yeah.
It's something that you found in.
Yeah, it's growing. I think we're going to see more and more of it. Who knows where it goes, but as long as the end users are still at the forefront of those developments, then I think Mozilla will be happy to promote that.
Seth and Arun, thanks a lot for your time. A lot of developers and users look up to Mozilla for the initiatives they are taking and for the contributions they are making. If you have to send a message across to them, what would you say?
I would definitely say that this is a great time to be involved in open source. I think, in fact, some number of years ago, the President of India, Kalam, actually made a statement about open source and it being extremely useful for India. That's a vision that may still yet need to be realized. I think it's a great time to contribute. I think lots of exciting things are happening on the web, so it's a great time to be a web developer. And in general, I'm very, very optimistic. So if I were to distill a message, it would be a message of encouragement and optimism.
And maybe to punctuate that, as people are using the web, I think it's best if people can continue to use the web to promote good things. Just in general, standards, open source, but beyond that, using the web to promote culture and languages. Ultimately, just knowledge, I think, is something that I hope most people take to heart, and they use the web as a good thing going forward.